and if necessary and if requested, will allow the state any follow-up voir dire if requested in an effort, if they choose to rehabilitate jurors. To not do that would be reversible error. But the order that was entered regarding this, the court said, the court, in paragraph 1 of the order entered, what date it was entered, but the court grants some individual voir dire on issues related to pretrial publicity and death qualification of potential jurors. The nature and extent of the individual voir dire will be yes, I'm sorry. In the order, the court said the court grants some individual voir dire on issues related to pretrial publicity and death qualifications of potential jurors. The nature and extent of individual voir dire will be determined at the time of jury selection. So I will permit the defense to engage in additional voir dire on relevant issues. I am exercising my discretion. I'm not going to allow 2 more rounds of voir dire by 2 different attorneys. I'm not prohibiting I want to emphasize, I am not prohibiting the defense from asking questions that are relevant and will give them sufficient time. I'm just limiting the number of attorneys and number of rounds we go through voir dire. So the defense can ask relevant questions. I'm just limiting it to 1 round with 1 attorney, not 2 rounds with 2 attorneys. So I would ask that y'all, both sides, for what it's worth, please use your time wisely and be cognizant of the Venari members' time and consider their issues also. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter to me who it is.
Defense objection to your ruling. And Judge, I just have one other thing that I'd like to put on the record as well. Judge, you called us in today to continue voir dire. We're objecting to how this is proceeding in that by bringing us in today, Judge, this was a court holiday. Public schools are closed in our area. Most of people had the day off today, Your Honor, and we just feel that this has caused the panel to be biased against the defense because they're being brought in for our questioning on a day that was a holiday, for the record.
State wish to comment?
Yeah, I would comment because there was no objection yesterday when it happened, and that seems somewhat suspiciously timed to wait until the juror's already been told to be here. We're all here. We're working. I certainly don't see any prejudice in that. The court was eminently reasonable and offered any of the jurors that felt that it could be an inconvenience for them, that they could opt out of appearing for jury selection, and more importantly, quite frankly, I think they're probably very glad to be back here because they recognize the sooner they get back here and get into this process, the sooner the vast majority of them will be released. So that's my position.
All right, I'll note the defense objection. There was no objection yesterday about this, and whether the Venari panel is biased against the defense would be pure speculation. We don't know that. So I'll note the defense objection. I'll step off. We'll bring the panel in, and the defense can proceed.
Judge, just before you go off, we didn't get a chance to talk to Mr. Minerva yesterday in the afternoon. He's the gentleman who says that he knows me, and I didn't know if you want to do that first real quick.
We can bring him in if y'all want.
I figure it should only take a couple of minutes.
Okay, sure. And we'll bring him in. If there's a reason to excuse him, we'll excuse him if there is. I don't know.
So just one other issue based on your ruling. There are 3 individuals that I want to question about sensitive topics that we found through our investigation. I'm asking if you would be willing to let me speak to those 3 individuals in private rather than in front of the panel because their responses may be inflammatory.
Who are they?
Ruth Bowden.
I'm sorry, who?
EDC number 34, Ruth Bowden. The next one is Nicholas DeVito. She's in suite number 43. And the next one is Megan Roberts. She's in suite number 2.
And Mr. Minerva is in seat 40.
I got him. State have any objection to talking to those folks individually?
No, I mean, do we want to do it now before we begin? How do you want to?
Let's do it now. I want to get get this process started, but let's do it now. Are they upstairs, or they're upstairs?
Yeah.
Can you have Mr. Minerva come in, please? His first name is Robert Minerva.
Ronald Minerva?
Robert Minerva. Morning, Mr. Minerva. You can have a seat right there in that front row there on your left. We wanted to talk to you outside the presence of the other folks for just a minute or two. I think you'd indicated earlier that you may know or do know Mr. Manship, so we wanted to ask you about that outside the presence of the other folks, okay? Okay, Mr. Manship.
Good morning.
Morning.
How do you know me?
I took a class at the Public Defender's Office under Law&Crime and did some criminal investigations. And I believe at least one or two of the ones that I had done were for you. And I just handed them over after I completed it.
Speak up just a little bit, sir. I can't hear you.
Could you repeat what you just said?
Just a second. I did some criminal investigations for the Public Defender's Office after I took the class there. This was under Tom Renault, and some of the investigations were for this gentleman. I don't remember what they were. I just remember you were in the bottom office, and I handed them to you, and we did some criminal back and forth.
If you could tell me the name of the program, please.
It was to be a private investigator, and I took that class under the auspices of the Public Defender's Office.
And how long were you in this class?
I think the class was several months, but I was there for about a year. It was in 2012.
And which location were you stationed?
Right next door.
In St. Lucie County, right here, 4
Yeah.
years?
Yes.
How certain are you that this was in 2012?
Because I was dating a girl in Vienna, Austria, and I traveled back and forth to Vienna in 2012.
Okay. So if you're in another country, are you doing our program at the same time? I mean, I'm
Yeah,
trying to figure out your
I
answer.
finished the program, and I was dating her, and I'd go over there for a month, and I was not being paid. It was just all volunteer work. And so I could go when I wanted to, as long as I had finished whatever those investigations were.
And how long was the actual class itself? You said that you stayed around for about a year. How long was the actual class?
A couple of 3 months on Tuesday, I believe it was on Tuesday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. Then I got a certificate, and then at the end, the public defender, Diamond Liddy, came in, and we had a graduation ceremony at her work. And that was it.
You continued to volunteer even after the 3 months was over?
Correct, yes. And we'd go to the jail in the morning for the bond hearing, and interview the prisoners who had been arrested the previous night. And then, some of us would have to bring back those information sheets.
How many times approximately would you say that you went and interviewed prisoners at the jail?
It was 3 or 4 times a week for 6 months. And then when a new class came in after my class was through, they stopped us from going to do the bond hearing. And we just did the investigation.
And whenever you would do this interview, your work product would get turned over to my office?
It would be turned up over to the lady on the first floor. I don't know, her cubicle or whatever was right next to the copy machine. I don't know what her name.
All right. What impression did you have of me?
Very professional. I mean, there were short conversations. I mean, I didn't draw a real impression of him. I was basically just doing an investigation screen. The paperwork over to you, what I had done, and you were fine. I mean, you weren't snobby or anything else. You were very professional and very friendly. You know, that's all.
And how many investigations do you think you actually did for me?
Couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 because we could pick from any number that were upstairs, or downstairs, I'm sorry. Downstairs, in that little cubicle in the back by where the coffee room is. And we could pick and choose what we wanted. And the luck of the draw had me pick a couple of years.
You found, you were able to look and see what the investigation was and then decide whether or not to do it.
It would say maybe need to investigate or talk to X individual, reference traffic accident on such and such, what the individual sees, and then we'd have to type it up and submit it.
Was that a specific one that I gave you?
No, you never, the public defenders, the assistant public defenders never gave per se. They all went through, I think Tom would know when they were doing printout on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. We could pick through what we wanted.
Is it fair to say that you logged approximately 300 hours with my office?
It's exactly 302 hours, if I'm not mistaken. That's what my little certificate says, if I'm not mistaken.
What other impressions did you have of working with my office?
I enjoyed it. It's very professional. Everybody was friendly. I enjoyed doing, I use the word work, but it's volunteer. I enjoyed going there and doing it. It was something that I was used to some degree by being an ex-police officer, so it wasn't completely new to me.
Why is it that you stopped?
Judge, I'm going to object. I mean, I think we've kind of beaten this dead horse. I don't know what we're getting.
Imagine how much more, you said it'd be 2 or 3 minutes, how much more inquiry do you wish to use?
Could I have the answer to this question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Why is it that you stopped?
We weren't getting paid, and I was driving all over the county, and it was costing me a lot of gas and money. Other than that, I didn't mind it. I'm retired, and that took a lot out of my budget.
Did you request money for fuel?
No, I did not. It was known in advance that it was, we were volunteers, we did not get any benefits, period. That was understood. But it just became too much.
I don't have any other questions.
State wish to inquire.
Mr. Minerva, you could still be fair and impartial in this case?
Of course, definitely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minerva. Let me have you step outside here for us. We appreciate you bearing with us. Thanks very much. Now, Mr. Minerva, one thing before I let you walk out. Don't discuss anything we talked about in here with any of the folks outside the courtroom. Your other jurors, okay? Okay. Mr. Stanley, what is it, these other folks you want to talk to them about? I'm just trying to get a gauge on the time.
Stan.
Mr. Glenn, how much time do you think this other individual is going to take? So I just trying to get a handle on the time.
How long? Probably about 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. Can you have Bruce Bowden come in, please? Bruce Bowden. Yes.
Judge, I tried to jump up before you switch topics, but I am moving for cause on Mr. Minerva.
Okay. I'll do it in just a minute. Let me get
Yes,
these
sir.
other folks. I want to get this
Understood.
moving.
Yes, sir.
I'll give you a chance to make a challenge, but I just...
Sure, please. Yes, sir.
Mr. Bowden, thanks for bearing with us. Before we get the group in here, I wanted to let them talk to you for just a minute or two outside the presence of the other folks, okay?
You gotta let me understand the question. The reason why I brought you this individual, and I want you to know exactly what this is about.
Mr. Glenn, you need to speak up. We can't hear you.
Forgive me. That should make it better. I want you to know exactly what this is about. As part of our board hire, we do background checks, okay? And something came up during our background checks that I want to talk to you about outside the presence of everyone else. It's not bad, I just want to ask you about it, okay? Now, first I want to ask you, do you have a Facebook account?
Facebook, yes.
Okay. How long have you had it?
I don't know, 5, 7 years, something like that.
Okay. You have your Facebook set up so that it's public and everyone can see it?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Now, I want to show you something. Take a look at this. You recognize that?
That's me. This?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, just so the record is clear,
You don't know what it is.
sorry, Mr. Backett, take a look.
I don't even know what it said on there.
I'm going to read it into the record just.
Okay, let's get to the point.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
Just so the record is clear, there's a link that Mr. Bowden posted on December 22nd of 2013, and it said, I quote, GOP Rep Kingston, would you poor kids at school janitors, their pay, lunch. The quote underneath of it says, in an effort to teach poor kids the lesson, there is no free lunch. Representative Jack Kingston would have students sweeping the cafeteria floors in exchange for, and then it stops. Did you link that to your Facebook?
Probably, I'm sure I did.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Why did you link it?
I'm not sure. I'd have to sit down and read it again. I'd have to read the whole story because who knows what the rest of this story says. I don't know.
Okay.
I might have liked something he said in there, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I couldn't answer the question right now without reading the whole story of that.
Let me ask you this. Do you agree with the comment that's listed with what we can see?
I'd have to read the whole story. As you know, Facebook, they always put that little thing to make you want to read the next page.
Okay.
So what that next page says, I don't know, but there might have been something there I liked. I don't know.
Okay. Let me ask this, and it's not to offend you.
No problem.
Do you have any type of bias or dislike of people that are poor?
Absolutely not.
Do you have any bias or dislike of people that are African American?
No. In my business, I treat everybody the same. I own a business. And I don't care if you live in Vero Beach on the island or Avenue D. I charge you the same price, and there's not many contractors that do that. I'm not against anybody.
And that's why I'm doing this without everybody else being in the room, because I'm not trying to offend
I
you.
could answer it in front of people. It doesn't bother me.
Okay, all right. I appreciate it. I have nothing further from Mr. Bowden.
State wish to inquire.
Mr. Bowden,
Yes, sir.
we've spent 2+ days talking about the law, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of the laws I told you very plainly and simply that I read to you yesterday was feelings of bias, sympathy, prejudice, emotion, all those things have no place in a court of law, correct?
Right.
And you recognize that?
Absolutely.
And you're going to follow the judge's instructions in that regard?
100%.
Thank you very much.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you, sir, very much. I'll let you step out. When we bring the other group in, we'll bring you in, but don't discuss anything we talked about in here with them.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tabita? Nicholas Tabita? Tabito, I'm sorry. Now, we need to put that Facebook document or whatever you were referring to into the court record, please.
I'm going to hand them to you as soon as I'm finished.
Thank you, Mr. Tabita, for bearing with. You can have a seat right there in the front row. We want to talk to you outside the presence of the other folks before we have the group come in, okay? Thanks for bearing with us.
Good morning, Mr. Tabita. Good morning. I'm Stanley Glenn. You haven't met me before, but I will be doing voir dire in the near future. The reason why I brought you in here is because as part of the defense voir dire, we sometimes do background investigation.
Yes.
As part of that, we came across something that we wanted to ask you about without everyone else being here, okay? Sure. Nothing bad, but we just want to ask you in person and in private.
Okay.
Now, first, do you have a Facebook account?
Do I?
Yes.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. You know how long you had it?
4 or 5 years, I would imagine.
Okay. Do you post to it on a regular basis?
Pretty irregular. I mean, I like a couple of things here and there, but I'm not. Yeah, I know a lot of my friends. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. I'm not one of those guys.
I want to ask you about something first. Let Mr. Backer, I'll take a look at that. Mr. Tabito, I'm showing you what I believe is a post to your Facebook on January 11, 2012. Tell me if that's true.
I didn't hear the date. Okay. Sure. I will. Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
So that company, I was the manager. That company was sold, and there's a Ronald Dawkins. I had nothing to do with any of that rebel flag stuff at all. I have no, it's not in my belief. I don't like it. I didn't encourage it. I actually called him and I told him, and because I was the owner of that company, I told him it was in his best interest that he should remove that. So, you know, regarding that post, I absolutely recall that. But I did not post that, and it's not of my, I didn't do it.
Okay. You just think someone else posted it to your account?
So it's no longer, I'm still on there. I don't even know how to take myself off. I don't know how, you know, but my favorite color is camo. Is not my company. I haven't posted anything around that point of time, after, or probably quite some time prior to that.
Now, you understand why we wanted to talk to you about this.
Absolutely.
Because our client's an African-American man.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that no one has any bias or prejudice against him.
I have no racial bias one way or another, I will tell you that.
Right.
And I swear that to the court.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
State.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to remind you of something we talked about the other day. Do you remember this? Yes. When I talked about the law, your verdict should be, your verdict should not be influenced by feelings of prejudice, bias, or sympathy. And your verdict must be based upon the evidence and the law contained in these instructions. Remember when I read that yesterday? I do. And you recognize that what that is the law, correct? That is correct. And you're going to follow the law? 100%. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Let me just have you wait outside for a minute. We'll bring you in shortly. Please don't talk about anything we talked about in here with those other folks. Okay? Thanks for bearing with us. And finally, Miss Roberts, Megan Roberts. Ms. Roberts, thanks for bearing with us, ma'am. You can have a seat right here on your left there in the front row. We wanted to bring you in and talk to you for just a minute or two outside the presence of the other folks, so thanks for bearing with us. Mr. Glenn.
Good morning, Ms. Roberts. I'm Stanley Glenn. You haven't met me before, but I will be questioning jurors sometime today, okay? I want to talk to you about something in particular, and it relates to law enforcement. Okay. I wanted to do it outside the presence of everyone else. Nothing bad. Just want to get your opinion, okay? Okay. Now, part of our defense questioning jurors, we do background check. Yes, sir. And we did one for you, and we found a couple of articles that pertain to you, and I want to ask you about them, okay? Okay. The first one in question
It's multiple pages, so I...
Sorry, let me show you.
Okay.
Yeah, I do, but I don't know.
What I'm showing the prosecutor is basically City of Port St. Lucie City Council meeting minutes. The date is September 13th of 2010. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Okay.
I mean, it's really just the floor, and I'm sure it's probably the ceremony.
You got it.
The ceremony?
It said that Megan Roberts testified before the council, explained that she was a master sergeant in the Port St. Lucie Police Department Explorer Post. You were talking about the laying off of 24 officers would affect the safety of the city and the Explorer Post. You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the reason why we're doing this is because you acknowledge that my client, Mr. Tisdale, is charged with murder of a law enforcement officer. You know that, right?
Yes.
Not only murder, but first-degree premeditated murder, right?
Yes, sir.
You've already told us that your mother is a retired law enforcement officer.
Yes.
You've already told us that you have been a part of the Explorer program.
Yes.
That in fact you were a master sergeant, that you rose pretty high in the program.
Yes.
Do you have any law enforcement ambitions of your own?
No, sir, not at all.
Why?
I'm actually kind of a chicken. I get really scared really easily. I just kind of did it because I was interested in cause my mom was a cop, I was interested in it, but I never wanted to pursue a law enforcement career at all. I'm actually going to school to be a librarian, so never wanted to go down that road. I just was interested just in the, more like the forensics behind it. I actually did want to go into forensics, but I just switched later on. I just don't have that vision for me.
What is the number one thing that steered you away from a law enforcement career?
I guess the danger. Like I said, I'm a very jumpy, skittish person. Like, I don't do horror films or anything like that. So I guess the surprise of not knowing, I guess, what could happen possibly. So that's what steered me away from that.
Fair enough. Now, you acknowledged to me that you went in and spoke before the council because you were concerned of a layoff that were coming.
Yes.
And here's the ultimate question. After hearing days of testimony from your fellow jurors, after hearing days of questions from the state and the defense, can you guarantee us that you can be a neutral juror in this case? That's the ultimate question.
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to take it a little bit further while I have you in here. How are you going to feel if I show you a picture, or the prosecution shows you a picture of Sergeant Morales on an autopsy table with a bullet wound in his head?
It wouldn't be the first picture I've seen, and I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form to sound callous or cold. I've seen pictures before, just being with the Explorer. I've seen, autopsy pictures or crime scene photos, and I believe I can handle it.
Okay. Now, Ms. Roberts, we're not talking about any autopsy picture.
Does someone object? Answer the question.
I'll sustain the objection. It's been made clear.
I'll come back to that later. I want to ask you about another article. And I'll show this to the state before I mention it to you. Take a look at the second page. Ms. Roberts, what I'm looking at is an article found in TC-POM,
Okay.
dated July 13th of 2011, and it makes the reference, I quote, Port St. Lucie resident Megan Roberts, 18, was another of the mock victims, a member of the Port St. Lucie Explorer Post 401. Roberts said the training exercise taught her what to do if ever caught in such a situation. You remember that?
Was that the high school?
It says, SWAT team dispersed, mock the doctor, Fort Pierce Central High. Okay. Now, what made you participate in that?
There were posts from all over the county going, and it was just my post decided to join and help. It wasn't just our post, there were several other posts and volunteers there helping out, so we just did it as a group.
Okay. Did you seek to participate in it because of your law enforcement background and family? Is that part of why you did it?
No, I just did it because it was just an activity for our whole post to do. I mean, I didn't like do it just because, law enforcement, just an activity for us that day.
Okay. And I have one more I want to ask you about. This is also an article from T.C. Palm, dated August 10th of 2010. It said, Port St. Lucie Explorers take third place in national competition, and it lists several names. This is in Atlanta, Georgia, and your name was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at that point, how old were you?
18, 19?
Okay. And when did you first begin the Explorer program?
Give me a second. I want to say 2008 or 2009.
Okay. All right. When did you stop the Explorer program?
3 years ago. I was 20, so 2012.
Okay. All right. You were in it for a good 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, 4 years.
Okay. All right. Is there anything about what I've discussed with you today, and I know I'm being repetitive, but I need to be clear on this, is there anything about what I've discussed with you today that would prevent you from being a neutral juror for Mr. Tisdale?
No, not at all. I did it mostly, I said, just as a hobby and activity. I was homeschooled my whole life, so just kind of a way just to kind of get, and other kids my age, and just an interesting program with my mom being a cop. I just thought it might be interesting. I never went into the Explorers for like a, to get the bad guys or to be a cop. I just, like that, mainly went in with the interest with the forensics, but I kind of outgrew that and, went towards different areas, career-wise. But none of my background would make me an impartial juror. I'm still very open-minded for everything.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. No further questions.
Back it up.
Thank you for your service. I appreciate it. Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. We'll bring you in with the whole group here in just a minute. If I can get you to step outside, but don't discuss anything we talked about in here with any of the other folks, okay? Okay, bear with us. Thank you very much. Mr. Roberts has been excused. Mr. Manship.
I was just going to ask that if we could make these articles and the 2 Facebook posts, if we could mark them and make them part of the court file, please.
Yeah, let's mark them as defense exhibits, just for identification, a composite exhibit 1. Okay, we'll put them in an envelope or keep them together so the record's clear.
I'm going to add to what you do.
You said you want to make a cause challenge on Mr.
Minerva.
Minerva.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
We asked that he be excused for cause. He volunteered more than 300 hours with our office, and it's, we hear other people say it's a little too close to home. I think this one's a little too close to home for us. He may certainly have some resentments that he didn't want to let out in the open today. I don't remember my interactions with him, and I'm afraid that myself, and particularly Mr. Tisdale, is going to be prejudiced because of anything that I may have said or done in front of him in the past that doesn't have to do with this case. It's insider information, essentially, that he has.
State.
Yeah, I guess if anybody should be moving for cause, it should be me. He described his experience with the Public Defender's Office as a good one. Everybody was professional. In particular, he has a favorable impression of a member of the defense team. Everything else that Mr. Manship just uttered is pure and utter speculation. There is absolutely no reason to believe that this man is worthy of or should be subject to a cause challenge. Obviously, there is something else at play here. If we're engaging in some type of a Melbourne analysis, I would suggest that, there's more at play. So I object to speculation, and certainly he's indicated he can be fair.
Mr. Bishop, anything else on Mr. Minerva?
No, sir.
All right, consider Mr. Minerva's individual voir dire on his previous association at the Public Defender's Office. That's the right word. Consider his questioning both on direct and cross-examination is the right word, but the inquiry by the state also. There's nothing from his individual voir dire at all that would lead this court to believe his experience at the Public Defender's Office would affect his ability to be fair and impartial. He described as being professional, friendly. He described what his activities were and why he left. So I have no reasonable doubt as his ability to be fair and impartial. Nothing he indicated, at least here in court, would lead me to believe he could not be anything but fair and impartial. So I'll deny the cause challenge. That's without prejudice. Okay, we're ready to have him come in?
Yes, sir.
Defense ready to have him come in? Okay, we'll bring him in. If y'all will everybody just please make sure you speak up so we're able to hear you and get you on the record, and please use your time wisely. Okay, thank you. Let me know when they're ready and I'll come in and we'll proceed.
Circuit Court's going to be in a short recess. Everybody be seated, please.
So how'd you pull the short stick today and get it working?
I'm usually at St. Louis OS.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, electrical, so
Yeah.
just need
Shift you over here.
to start today.
Come in. Tell Bobby. Go ahead. Tell Bobby.
What?
Wait till I tell him. Yeah, you can put on.
You know it's even better than that?
Do you want me to put Mr. Hazel and Mr. Cullen in their right seats?
Yes,
I know you may have changed your paperwork, but,
I ain't giving that.
no, I'm asking, put them in the right seats?
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause I know there's been some confusion. I apologize for not having them properly set.
We would like them set.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Come into our
All right, attorneys, here we go.
Good morning.
And then the clock stops.
may be seated. All stand, please. Hearing here in the Circuit Court of the Ninth Judicial Circuit of Florida in Fort St. Lucie County is now in session. Civil Judge Dan Vaughn presiding. You may be seated.
Thank you all very much. All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate your patience very much. I truly do. Just so we're clear, maybe I didn't make myself clear yesterday. I think I said yesterday ordinarily this would be a religious holiday or a day off, but it's at my request, insistence, order, if you want to call that we're here today, not the litigants. It wasn't their idea, okay? This is at my request that y'all come in on this day to go through the process. So if I didn't make that clear yesterday, I want to make it clear this morning. Also, before we get started, let me pick up where I left off last night. I want to read to you this instruction again, advise you a couple other things, and I'll turn it over to the lawyers. This is the victim impact evidence instruction. Let me read it to you in its entirety again, then make one other comment about it. If we get to the second phase, you would, and if this evidence is presented, you would receive this instruction. You have heard evidence about the impact of this homicide on the family, friends, and community of Mr. Morales. This evidence was presented to show the victim's uniqueness as an individual and the resultant loss by Mr. Morales' death. However, you may not consider this as an aggravating circumstance. Your recommendation to the court must be based on the aggravating circumstances and the mitigating circumstances upon which you have been instructed. In other words, under Florida law, the state may present this evidence in the penalty phase if that becomes necessary. However, as I have explained to you in this instruction, this evidence is not an aggravating factor that the jury could consider in the deliberations as to what recommendation is made to the court. It may be presented to you, but the jury is not to consider it as an aggravating factor. Okay. Thank you all very much for your attention. Defense, who wants to go?
It's me, Judge.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I did make a little promise that I'm not going to be up here very long. I just want to go over the victim impact that was just read to you by the court, as read to you yesterday, and I understand you had a night to think about it, and I just want to address it to everybody so that we can go forward from here. And I want to start with you, Mrs. Halstead, because you rose your hand and you had some concerns when the instruction was read to you.
Yes.
Okay? The judge just read it to you again, right?
Yes.
If this case does get to the second phase, premeditated murder has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and you're sitting on the jury, do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial based on instruction?
Honestly, yes. I would like to think I could set it aside and not consider it, but I can't promise that that would be the case.
Okay, so would you were saying you would consider it and weigh the circumstances on the aggravation?
Yes.
Thank Ms. Roberts,
Yes, ma'am.
do you feel, after listening to the instruction, it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if it gets to the second phase?
No, I'm not.
Ms. Aranda, do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial on the second phase?
No, I do not.
Mr. Moulton, do you fear it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty on the second phase if it gets to that phase?
It will not.
Mr. Kirby, do you feel that it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial?
No.
Deciding your recommendation on life without parole or the recommendation for death penalty?
It won't be a factor in either decision.
Ms. Lloyd, do you feel it would impair your ability to I'm sorry, I have to say it correctly for the record, okay? I'm being recorded just like you. Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in deciding your recommendation?
No, it will not.
Ms. Stepland, do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in making your recommendation for life?
I think it could, yeah.
Okay. How would you consider it?
How would I consider it? Well, you could see in the life of this man, I'm sure. I don't know what what they would produce, but I think it would certainly impact my thoughts, my judgment.
Okay.
I understand I have to follow the law. I understand what you're saying.
Right.
But it would still, I think it would definitely impact the decision.
Okay. And would it impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase based on
Yeah.
the law and not being able to apply it the way it's instructed? Thank you. Mr. Graffinino, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if it gets there on your recommendation for life without parole? Just make sure, I know I project, but you guys got to make sure you're projecting your answer too, okay? All right. Ms. Alita, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial on the second phase and your recommendation, deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Bach, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase and making your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
Yes, it would.
Do you feel that you would consider it in weighing the aggravating factors?
Somewhat. It would be very hard to erase if there is a 3 or 4 little children left, the father. I would try.
Okay. So, based on the instruction that you were just read, which is the law, are you going to say that you will not be able to be fair and impartial and set it aside?
I would follow the law, but I could not erase it from my mind.
So would you consider it in weighing? You
Yes.
believe it would enter your mind?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Trayer?
Yes.
Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase when making a recommendation to be on a life without parole or a death penalty sentence?
No, I think I'd be able to set that information aside and go with the evidence that is supposed to be weighed as far as the aggravators and the mitigators.
Okay, so you can follow the law as instructed. Mr. Wick?
Yes.
Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase in recommending your decision to recommend life without parole or the death penalty?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Ms. Is it Stottlemyre? Stottlemyre. Do you feel that it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial when making your decision on your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Ms. Moore, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in deciding your recommendation in the second phase for life without parole or the death penalty if we get there?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Ra-Rigg, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
It's called victim impact statement.
Yes, sir.
Will the start and end of this victim impact statement be clearly identified so I would not confuse it
testimony of some kind.
Yes, yes, you will know when it starts and when it ends. The court will be instructing you on all of that.
To answer your question, no, it will not affect my ability to be fair and impartial.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Denmark. Oh, he's in here, right? Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if it gets to that point in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty? No. Thank you. Mr. Rivera, do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial when making your recommendation decision in the second phase if we get there on life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Weiner, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial when making your decision and recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Polycar.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you feel that it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Ms. Gettler, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there when deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
Not at all.
Thank you. Ms. I didn't do the acronym today. How do you say it?
Arkadapani.
Arkadapani. I like that name. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there on making your decision on life without parole or the death penalty?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Barnes? Aye.
Hello.
Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, and can I also say that when privately I need to speak to the court?
Yes, sir. We'll take note of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lloyd, you need to speak privately as well? Okay.
I'm sorry, who else?
Ms. Lloyd and Mr. Barnes. Okay. Ms. Jones? Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there when you decide your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, it would not.
Thank you. Mr. Bowden? Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial if we get to the second phase in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am. Also, I don't know if this is the time to talk about the previous question, without going into details.
Which question?
What we talked about privately. I don't know if now's the time to talk about it.
We can take it up later if we need to.
Take it up later, yeah, because I wasn't questioning you on that.
Okay.
But we'll make sure.
I'll make a note of it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sam Elliott?
Yes.
Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding factors on life without parole or the death penalty recommendation?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia? Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty? That,
No, ma'am.
thank you. Mr. Barry?
Good morning.
Good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there when deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am, I don't think it will.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson? Oh, Mr. Minerva.
Minerva.
Minerva, sorry. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial on the second phase if we get there when making your deciding, considering, when you're making your, oh my God, deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the life death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Sorry. Mr. Wilson? Good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there when deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty? Mr. Grauber?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Saldoni, I will stipulate that the question's being answered properly if you don't want to ask it.
Could we approach, Your Honor? I want to ask it to every single person.
No, I understand. I'm just saying.
Mary, could we approach? I don't understand. not just a question. Okay? Because what I talked to everybody about yesterday, that this was a second phase death penalty questions, and your responses are individual. They're not in a group. Okay? I didn't finish with you, Mr. Robert. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in deciding your recommendation in the second phase if we get there for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Mr. Stanley? Oh, I don't know why I keep pressing over. Mr. Tauber, Mr. Tobido, right?
Good morning, yes.
Good morning. It's because we already talked to you for a minute, so, sorry. Mr. Tobido, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase when you get there on your deciding factors and when you recommend life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Mr. Stanley, do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole and the death penalty?
No.
Ms. Galino, how are you? Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty in the second phase if we get there?
I believe that hearing the victim, opinion on it will have an effect on me. I'm not certain that it will affect my ability to be fair and impartial in deciding whether he should receive life in prison or death. I will try my best to not have it waived, but I can't let go of it completely, I guess.
Okay, well, you heard the instruction given to you by the court, right?
Yes.
Do you feel that that instruction is something, we talked about following the law, that's all we've been talking about, right?
Yes.
Do you feel that it's going to impair your ability to, in fact, follow the law and be fair and impartial? And you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Sanat?
Didn't.
Okay, there's a no there, I understand. I'm sure all your students will never get that wrong. Okay, do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in deciding a recommendation in the second phase if we get there for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, it will not.
Thank you. Ms. Welsh?
Yes.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
I've been grown since yesterday.
No, it's short stuff.
Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, it will not.
Mr. Burge? Morning. Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm going to try and get it right. Ms. Cameron Cosworth? Okay. Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in deciding your recommendation in the second phase if we get there on the issue of whether recommend life without parole or the death penalty?
Follow the law.
Okay. So the answer is, will impair or not?
It will affect.
Okay. Ms. Dick? Morning.
Morning.
Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Ms. Zimmerman? Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Here we go again. Mr. DeJusti? Yeah. Pretty good?
Yeah.
Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Burgess? Morning. Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Chamberlain? Good morning. Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, I won't.
Thank you. Mr. Farinacci?
Good morning.
Good morning. Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there on deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Lowe? Good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there in deciding life without your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Estorella? Mr. Estorella? You're very manly looking. I don't know why I said that. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Moving right along, Mr. Brooks, good morning. Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Amos?
Yes.
Do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Sims, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Thank you. Ms. Magwood? Good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Hazel?
Yes, how are you?
You guys sit in your old seats? Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Mr. Coleman, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Marrera?
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Marrera, I got it right today. Good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am, it will not.
Ms. Burgess? Hi. Good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty? No, it wouldn't. Mr. Green, good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Roan? Good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty in the second phase if we get there?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Smith? Good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial if we get to the second phase and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, it will not.
And Ms. Montano, how are you? Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
All right. I'll get in front of you for a couple of seconds. We're down to Mr. Burns. How are you today? Good. Okay. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Okay. Ms. Barthold, good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there and deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty? Katie, speak up. You don't have a big speaking role except for when you get back with the jury and deliberation, but for now we just need you to make sure the person over there can hear you. So your answer was no, right? Okay. Ms. Cheatham. Hi, how are you? Good morning. And do you feel that, do you feel it will impair your ability to be fair and impartial and decide? You have to let me finish the question. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty? Mr. Riker?
Yes.
Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Mr. Howard, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there in deciding the recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Ms. Renz, do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty?
No.
Mr. Watson, good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there in deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty, sir?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Grogan, I kind of talked to you a little bit about it yesterday, but I'm going to ask you the same question I asked everybody else. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in the second phase if we get there when you're deciding your recommendation for life without parole or the death penalty? Is that it?
No.
Okay. And Mr. King, good morning. Do you feel it would impair your ability to be fair and impartial in deciding a recommendation in the second phase if we get there for life without parole or the death penalty?
No, ma'am.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Mr. Glenn will now.
I'll give Mr. Glenn your attention, please.
Good morning. I've been told I don't speak loud enough, I'm going to wear a microphone. Now, we're going to shift gears a little bit. I'm going to finish this part up, and I'm going to do it differently. First of all, my name is Stanley Glenn, and I'm part of the defense team. I want to give you a little bit of background. What you're seeing up here, I'm hearing impaired. So I use the court reporter to help fill in the blanks. People like Miss St. a lot in the back, I can't see you from over there. And I rely on lip reading. So if you're talking and I'm sitting at the table, I'm never going to understand what you're saying. That's what this is about. Also, if I'm talking to you either now or during the trial, and I look away from you and go back to the computer, don't think I'm being rude. It's just simply because I want to make sure I get everything. Likewise, if you're listening to me and miss something, let the bell know, let me know, raise your hand, do something. I'll repeat it. Because you're going to hear a lot of me. Unfortunately, I like to talk. Who would know? Now, one of the biggest concerns I had when we started this process is my job is to defend us. This is a tough case. Not tough for me, but it's tough for people involved. Why? Because a man is dead. Another man's life hangs in the balance. Now think about that for a minute. Because throughout this process, I'm going to ask you to do something special for me. I'm going to ask that you be brutally honest. There's honesty, and then there's brutal honesty. I don't care what your opinions are. I don't. You can tell me you hate my guts. Doesn't matter to me. But if you do hate my guts and you don't tell me, then my client doesn't get up to a trial, and then it matters to me. Because we only get to do this once. As I said before, a man is dead, and another man's life hangs in the balance. There are going to be 12 of you that get to decide how this ends. And obviously you're taking this seriously, because my co-counsel has already talked to you about that. And I appreciate that. But as she was talking to you, she put the cart before the horse. Now I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to put the horse back in front. And I'll explain what that means. You're going to be hearing from me during the guilt phase of the trial. you're going to be hearing from my co-counsel during the penalty phase of the trial. So that's why we're doing it in reverse, because the penalty phase is the most important, so we talk about that first. Now, that doesn't mean conceding guilt. It just means we talk about penalty first because it's the biggest issue, the one that most jurors have a problem with. Now, being brutally honest, I'm asking all of you to do that. So it's only fair that I should start. What is this case about? Brutal honesty. Eriese Tisdale shot Gary Morales. And as a result, Gary Morales died. Did you hear me? I'm being brutally honest. Now it's your turn. Understand, this case is about two different versions of what happened on that day. But I've just told you the most important factor. So let's dispense with that. You know Mr. Tisdale shot Gary Morales, and you know Gary Morales died.
Mr. Glenn, it's
yes,
very
sir.
hard to hear you over here.
Yes, sir.
Look stuff in that corner, we can't hear you down
I
there.
apologize. I was saying that the jury knows that Mr. Tisdale shot Gary Morales, and as a result, Mr. Morales died. The issue is that the state and the defense have two different versions of what happened on that day, and that's what the trial is about. Now, the line of questioning we're going to go into over the next few hours is going to talk about your qualification to sit in light of that fact and others. I hope you've noticed that when we started this process weeks ago, there were approximately 160, 170 of you. As of today, we're down to 66. We dispensed with almost 2/3 of you before I even stood up. Now, what did I tell you about how difficult this is? We are not doing this to bore you, although I'm sure you're bored. I would be bored if I were you. But the reality is, we only get to do this once. And if we don't do it right, God help us. Now, with that, I want to talk to the first one, okay? And the first thing I want to talk to you about, Ms. Roberts, how do you feel about what I just told you?
I appreciate your honesty.
Okay. In light of your ability to be a juror, we beat the drum, okay? You know, fair and impartial, you've heard it. And fair and impartial means neutral, nobody at either side. In light of what I've just told you, has that changed your position at all about it? Okay. Now, Mr. Wanda, what about you? In light of what I told you, has your position changed at all about being a neutral juror in this case?
No.
Mr. Moulton?
Yes, no.
Mr. Kirby, how about you?
Yes.
Ms. Houston? Ms. Lloyd?
No.
Ms. Stephan? That's fine. My question was, in light of everything that I told you, what's happened in this case? You know a crucial fact that you did not know before. Had that changed your position that you can be a neutral or a fair and impartial juror in this case?
I believe, yes. But as I said, the impact, so I've already said that might be a problem for me.
me come back to Ms. Roberts. I want to talk about a slightly different issue, and then I'm going to move this back. So pay attention. Ms. Roberts, you have a little bit of background in law enforcement. You agree?
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to ask you this question. Have you ever had the civilian come into contact with law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Was it a positive experience or negative one?
I learned my lesson. Not just the...
Can you clarify what you mean by that?
I mean, the law enforcement officer was very polite. I mean, it was my fault. I was, I was speeding, and I didn't move over, so it was my fault. But he was, friendly and, to the point, but he was, friendly with it. So it was like a positive interaction, I guess.
Okay. All right. You didn't have any complaints with what happened?
No, sir. No.
Okay. Now, Mr. Wanda, have you had any interactions with law enforcement?
I have.
Have they been positive or negative or both?
They've been positive, and I was speeding as well, and I had some tires in the car, and I received a lecture from the highway patrol, and I told them that thank you for having me understand that a tire could have blown out, and I could have been stranded with my daughters if I wasn't driving the speed limit. So I gained more respect for law enforcement that way.
Mr. Moulton, how about you?
I have had experiences, yes.
Okay. Have they been positive, negative, or both?
I would say neutral to positive.
Okay. All right. Nothing bad?
No, correct.
Now, I'm going to stop with you three and move down. Ms. Robert, Mr. Moulton, you're both Caucasian, right?
Yes.
Mr. Wanda, I'm not sure of your ethnic background. What is it? Okay. To the three of you, would you accept the proposition that sometimes young African-American men are treated differently by law enforcement? Ms. Roberts, what's your answer?
In some cases, possibly, and others, no. And it's kind of in the middle on that one.
Tough question, isn't it?
It is.
Have you ever witnessed anything like that yourself?
No, sir.
Mr. Wanda, what did you say?
I would say being Hispanic, I myself have dealt with racism, but not from a law enforcement. And I do realize that not every cop is a good cop. And there could be anybody to be not fair to a person of color. So I feel that it could happen.
Okay. Mr. Moulton, which of these two ladies do you agree with?
I would have to believe that it can definitely exist, although I have no first-hand experience or personal experience with somebody that's been affected by that. It's in the press all the time, the public press.
Okay. Now I have to ask you why you believe that it exists.
From the evidence that's presented in the news, some of the videos that I've seen.
Mr. Kirby, what's your take on the topic?
I believe that it certainly can exist because people are fundamentally still people. So at any moment, their personal feelings can play a part in the role of their job. But I have not personally experienced firsthand any treatment negatively towards anybody except for I've had a negative experience with an officer once just because he was a really super rude guy. So, but the actual overall way it was handled was not bad. He was just not polite.
I understand. And just so we're clear, I think the other side brought this up. There's good and bad in every profession, okay? And I don't want you to think that I'm insinuating that law enforcement are bad, because I'm not. I have plenty of law enforcement friends, some of them are in the courtroom. But what I'm talking about are issues that pertain to this case. And that's why I'm going down this line of question, okay? It's very important and it has to be done. Ms. Houston, what do you think about what I asked?
So I would echo some of what he said. I think there are good and bad. My interactions personally have been mixed. In most cases, I've encountered law enforcement doing their job. I might not have been happy about them doing their job the way they were doing it, but I do believe that there is a difference in how
young African-American males are treated. I have witnessed that in my work in community organizations. So I believe it does exist in every case or with every person.
Can you give me, are you comfortable talking about what you witnessed exactly?
Sure. When I lived in upstate New York, I used to work for the food bank and I worked with a variety of community agencies. I frequently saw young black men being stalked and questioned, and when they weren't doing anything other than walking down the street or playing basketball. I felt it was unfair, that if they had been white, they would have been left alone.
Ms. Lloyd, I couldn't help but notice that you nod your head to something Ms. Houston was saying.
Well, no, I do believe there is prejudice in some cases. Is it right? No. But I also feel, and I was raised this way, where we respect the man in the uniform and the badge.
Understood. Ms. Stephan, what do you think? By a convicted felon in first round, okay? One of the charges is possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. You heard the charge. Some people will automatically discredit somebody that is the convicted felon just for that fact alone. So what I'm asking you, Ms. Roberts, is would you do that?
It's something honestly I thought about, and because of his previous experiences that weigh into the charges that are being presented now. Honestly, part of me did think that it should weigh in because of his previous criminal background. I don't have a definite answer to that, because I'm still trying to figure that out myself. And I'm not sure if there's a law behind it. If there's a law, then I would obviously follow the law. But I don't have a definite answer.
Okay. Let me tweak my question a little bit. The law says that when a witness steps into the courtroom, whether they're a convicted felon, a law enforcement officer, or a lay witness, they all start at the same place in credibility, okay? You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Once they testify, you then can assess their credibility to determine whether or not you accept what they're saying, whether or not you think they're being honest, whether or not you think you're accurate. You agree?
Yes, sir.
So my question is this. Assuming you heard from a convicted felon, before he or she ever said a word.
Excuse me, Your Honor. I'm sorry, Mr. Glenn. I would ask the court to instruct on the specific rule.
Approach, please.
They called me. They cannot hear Mr. Glenn at all. They can't understand.
I'll speak loud.
That group right in the corner.
In the back.
No, from the beginning, that's 1, 2, 3 rows.
Okay. Thank you. I was told someone can't hear me, so wave to me if you can, and I'll come over, okay? Thank you. Ms. Roberts, back to what we were talking about. You understand that when a witness comes in the courtroom, regardless of convicted felon, law enforcement, or civilian, they start at the same place. You understand that?
Yes.
And having told you that there may be people testifying in the trial that are convicted felons, would you deviate from the law if that happened?
No, I'll follow the law.
Mr. Wanda, on the convicted felon topic, would you follow the law and consider the testimony of a convicted felon?
Yes, I'll follow the law and understand that once everyone's up there, they're equal. Yeah, follow the law.
Mr. Martin, how about you?
I would follow the law also.
Mr. Kirby?
Absolutely.
Ms. Houston?
Follow the law, make it
Sorry.
absolutely follow the law.
Okay. Ms. Houston?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Most definitely, yes.
Ms. Suckling? Now, thank you. I'm going to let you guys off the hook for a little bit, okay? I want to move to the second row and talk to Mr. Guapagino. All right. First, how do you feel about what I told you? Meaning that Tisdale did shoot Gary Morale, and as a result, Gary Morale died. Let's start with that. How do you feel about that?
I still remain neutral. Don't have an opinion either way yet. I would wait till I see the facts, because I don't know exactly what happened that day.
Okay. And with the guy? Ilya. How do you feel?
I don't think just because now a fact is in place that he did shoot him determines whether or not he's guilty of the crime, because just because he did shoot him doesn't mean he's guilty of maliciously, with intent, shooting him. So I don't have an opinion either way.
Okay. So, just to make sure I understand you, you are saying, I told you that fact, but it doesn't change your position that you're neutral.
Correct.
Because you understand that the law, as it pertains to the crime charge, still has to be proven.
Right.
Ms. Lauk, how do you feel about what Ms. Elia just said?
I agree. I don't have an opinion without knowing the details.
Ms. Locke, if you can speak up just a little bit, ma'am.
I don't have any opinion without knowing the facts and the details. I'm neutral.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Trayer?
Yes, sir.
What is your opinion now that I told you the detail?
Well, I believe the information was already available to us when we read the charges, that he was being charged with that day. And so therefore, I don't see any way that you reiterating that would change my ability to follow the law or not.
And I understand. I want to make sure one thing clear, though. When you read the charges as a group, you were told the government had charged Mr. Tisdale with the crime and they had the burden of proving it beyond a reasonable doubt, right?
Correct.
What I've done is I've essentially told you that one of the elements of the crime charge is there. Though it had changed a little bit.
Right. But
Because
what hasn't been imparted to me is any of the evidence that is still going to come out during the court case.
Okay. Mr. Wicks,
Yes.
where do you stand now that you've been given this information?
Well, you can't make a honest decision until you hear all the facts. This is one fact of the case, but I know there's more facts to it, and you can't make a wise decision until you have all the facts.
Okay. And you're telling me that you have not changed your position of being neutral, despite the fact that I told you this?
Correct.
Ms. Sotomayor? Thank you. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
What's your position?
I'm still neutral. I don't have all the facts.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Moore, what's your position?
I remain neutral.
All right, thank you. Mr. Robert, are you still neutral?
Yes, sir.
All right, has your opinion at all changed based on what I told you?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Denmark? Are you, well, let me rephrase it. How do you feel about the fact that I told you the shooting took place?
I mean, you told it happened. I mean, we're here because that happened. Why it happened, we don't know. What led up to it, we don't know. That's what we're here to decide.
Okay. So you still remain neutral? All right. Now, Mr. Riviere.
Yes, I also agree with what you said. I think that made it clear the fact was that the shooting will take place, and it takes place by the defendant. And now what we have to determine based on the facts and the evidence whether it merits a sentence of life or a sentence of death.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. I want to come back to Mr. Graffagino. You heard me talking with the first row about law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Now, I brought up the fact that in America, the reality is African-American men, or sometimes young African-American men, are sometimes treated differently by law enforcement. Do you believe that to be a true statement or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Why?
To be honest, I mean, I've seen both ways, you know, where some will go out of their way to prove, like maybe they have something to prove. Maybe they need to look tough in front of their friends. Others, there's no reason. Sometimes they're just approached and harassed for no good reason.
Okay. Have you had any experience with law enforcement thus far?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Lai, do you believe the statement I made to be true?
I believe it to be possible. I haven't come across a situation like that in my time. But I do know that not just their actions, the police officers' actions against black males, it's not just black males, anybody, whether it be white, black, Hispanic, if they do not treat an officer with respect from the start, then it's going to change the whole entire situation. Because if you approach someone with respect, you will receive respect back. But if you automatically are on edge or rude or just angry, irritated, anything like that, it's going to change the whole situation. So I feel it's not just that they're discriminated against, it's that in a combination with if you're not respectful, you're not going to get respect back.
Now, let me pose a hypothetical to you. Would you accept that it's possible that some young black men, just because of their race, their hairstyle, the music they listen to, the way they dress, that a law enforcement officer may initially approach them differently than they would approach you?
Well, of course. Not too long ago, not me personally, but a friend of mine, he's actually white. He's around 28 years old, but he drives a black car, blacked out taillights, really dark tint. Because of that, he was pulled over, but no other reason, because everything is legal on his car, but that's discriminating against kind of in the same way where because of your hairstyle, the way you dress, or whatever, you can get harassed in the same way. Depending on what car you drive, you can get harassed in the same way.
Thank you. Ms. Lau, what do you feel about what I just discussed with these two people?
I've never had in my life a police officer. I never even stopped. I have been stopped. So I don't have any experience. The discrimination, I'm sure it exists probably even sometimes.
Mr. Trier, what do you think about what we're discussing here?
I certainly agree that prejudice does exist, and a lot of times prejudice is existing because of somebody having a bad day or having just had a situation that has put them out of sorts. I've certainly seen reports on TV and where some illustrations seem to have been blown out of proportion, but I don't know all the facts, just from what I'm seeing on TV. I believe there's also prejudice from both sides. There's also prejudices of men and female. So to try to say that prejudice does not exist would be, in my belief, folly. But I do not see any prejudice for myself in determining this case. Again, the facts are what the facts are, and those are the ones. It wouldn't matter whether, as you brought up, that the defendant has been a convicted person or not. When you go up front and you swear to tell the truth, then that's the basis that we should be understanding their testimony.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wicks.
Yes.
What's your take on the possibility that being a young black man can cause you to be treated differently by law enforcement? How do you feel about that comment?
I do believe that there is prejudice. I mean, I think in some cases people become hardened to the fact because of circumstances and everything. And but I do know that there is a good old boy mentality out there at times. And I mean, it is a possibility. We are human.
I know you said it's a possibility, and I accept that. Above and beyond possibility, do you think it actually happens in reality?
Yes, I do.
Ms. Sotomayor, do you agree with that? Ms. Moore, do you agree with him?
I do.
Mr. Wiley, do you agree with him?
I believe race does come into play.
Mr. Denmark?
I wouldn't say it's more like race, I'd say it's more like stereotype. From my personal experience, I had a sport bike. A cop followed me thinking I was going to pop a wheelie with my sport bike. Because it was a sport bike, you don't sit on the bike. So I don't think it's more of a prejudice thing, it's more of a stereotypical thing. When you see a certain person dressed in a certain way, say, hey, he's part of that group. You know, or even a white person, Spanish, whatever heritage, you think they're part of that group just by how they look, not in who they really are.
I'm going to talk about that. Mr. Riviere, do you agree with him?
I believe it's profiling. I think that neighborhoods, sections where people live, crime levels in certain areas may influence police officers to profile certain people based on their looks, race, how they drive, the use of the kind of vehicles they drive. I believe it does affect some people. On the same token, I believe that that in these areas, in my opinion, that officers typically are treated in a more ruthless way than they would be in other areas. So I can see how tension can build up between the two. So yes, I can believe this.
Ms. Garcia, I couldn't help but notice you nod your head back there.
And like he said, it's stereotyping the way you drive, the way you look, the cars you drive. Coming from Palm Beach, it was very, very prominent. If you drove a car with big wheels, loud music, you were automatically getting pulled over. You know, nothing, weren't doing anything wrong, just driving. So I definitely.
Did you personally witness that?
I witnessed that?
Did you?
I was never in the car, but oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So what the three of you are saying, for the record, I agree with you, but that's not the point. You're saying that this is more stereotype-based, based on different things, rather than the race or ethnicity of the person in the car.
I think that race does
I think Mr. Estrella is in the back. You're nodding your head. Why?
I'm under the same understanding that they are. I grew up in Surrey, West Boca Raton. We used to drive around, never had any trouble. Once we left that area and we would go to Fort Lauderdale or West Palm, just because we were driving in my friend's car, that was a brand new Mercedes that his parents bought him. They see 4 young kids in a Mercedes with us all the time, and we get pulled over. Nothing would ever happen, it would just check registration. But, you know, they see 4 of us sitting back then with beepers, and you know, as soon as we left that confine of suburb Boca, we were getting pulled over. We went to the Solas, and I can guarantee you we'd get pulled over every time. Nothing ever happened, but just because, you know, they see young kids in an expensive car, they do that profile. You know, something just didn't look right. Nothing ever, like I said, happened to us, but I can see where race in different situations could alter the procedure.
Now, in your case, if I understand you correctly, getting pulled over because you had a really nice car. Do you believe it can happen the other way?
Oh, yeah. Oh, most definitely.
And there's someone who is poor and more likely to be stereotyped.
Most definitely.
All right, I see a lot of nodding heads. Okay.
The other way it works.
Mr. Weiner.
Yes.
How do you feel about the conversation I'm having right now?
As far as the profiling and where that goes, I believe it's a issue between both groups. The police are afraid, so they're going to be overly cautious. People in those communities are afraid, so they're going to be over anxious. And I think when you put overcautious with over anxious, you have an explosive mix, and you're going to run into issues where things are going to, violence can happen.
Fair enough. On a national scale, would you agree with me that we've heard stories about violence of law enforcement being killed and African American people being killed by law enforcement? Would you agree that
I've heard both, yes.
In the media, that's been somewhat prevalent in the last year? You agree?
Correct.
Now, as a result of hearing those media stories, have you developed any strong opinions one way or the other?
Yeah, just what I said. I feel that it's a self-perpetuating issue, and people are handling it wrong because, you know, it's more of an attack mode than let's come to some kind of common ground here and see if we can make this, you know, more of a less stressful situation.
So if I understand you correctly, you believe that oftentimes both parties are at fault in those hostile situations?
I believe both parties are on edge.
Okay.
And are going to be waiting, you know, are going to be looking to protect themselves in some manner, and or try to avoid issues.
Now, you made a good point. Both parties are on edge. Would you expect that could cause one or both parties to overreact to the situation?
Yes.
Mr. Polycarp, have you been following my conversation?
Yes, I
How do you feel about what this man just said?
I agree with him.
Sure. Ms. Ketley?
Yeah,
How do you feel about what Mr. Weiner just said?
I agree with him.
Okay. So you're saying that it could be a situation where you have two different groups that are on edge,
Correct.
and those two groups, one or two, may overreact to a situation.
Correct. It all depends on how the two of them interact and how they react to the situation. If they treat each other with respect, and if they try to not jump, I don't know if that's the right word, but if they try to work out the situation instead of the reaction, the knee-jerk reaction might be a little bit better.
Thank you. Ms. Akapani, how do you feel about what we're discussing?
I agree with that gentleman that there's definitely, bias and discrimination in our world, unfortunately, and that people can, come at situations from an area or place of emotion or previous upset and can definitely overreact in certain situations. And it's unfortunate. I believe it does happen a lot.
And are you saying that you agree that sometimes that hostility or being on edge can cause an event to happen that maybe otherwise would not have happened?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes, what's your take on this?
Well, I do believe that, it's stereotyping. Everybody, I believe, in here has stereotyped somebody within their life. That's just a common human factor. For instance, I am a gay male. That's not how I define myself, but that is a part of me. And I am stereotyped. Sometimes I walk into Walmart and I hear the word fag. Sometimes I walk into school and I'll hear the word fag. It's something that society does, and I think that we learn that at a very young age with the boxes that we have to check, white, black, not Hispanic. That right there itself is stereotyping. We are people. At the end of the day, that's who we are. And we have to respect everybody for their opinion.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, I noticed you were nodding your head over Mr. Barnes' saying, what are your feelings on the topic?
Well, I believe that racism has always been a major issue in not only this country, but in society in general. And that since Ferguson, I think it's become much more obvious to those of us who don't deal with it, that it is worse than we thought it is. And that there are issues on both sides. To me, it made it very clear that people bring themselves to their jobs, and so there are police officers who come into the job prejudiced. There are young black men who face a law officer and assume from the very beginning that this person is prejudiced. So I think it has exacerbated it in some ways. The more we know about it, the more edgy we are about it, and the more we're looking for it, the more we're assuming it's going to happen to us. And so I think everybody is less comfortable with the person they're dealing with because it's now a more obvious issue than it was before. And I think in the long run it's a good thing, but I think right now it's dangerous.
I hear you, I do. I'm just curious, because the situation is dangerous, would that lead you, in being a juror in this case, to not be neutral? In other words, because you perceive the situation as dangerous, would that make you favor one side more than the other?
No, I believe it's dangerous on both sides. Okay. I believe everybody comes to it with a more edgier attitude, and so it can create danger within the cases.
Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Bowden, what is your topic, or what is your opinion on this topic?
I agree with what everybody said. There's a good point about us down there about the two parties getting off edge. I never thought about that, but really, yeah, both parties, it's hard to explain, but yeah, you got their attention, yeah, things can happen.
Thank you. Ms. St-Alot, what are your feelings on what we've been talking about? Let me go back to the different topic. I was talking about being a convicted felon before. Remember I mentioned that? I didn't have a chance to ask you about that. If there are different witnesses that come into the courtroom, some convicted felons, some not, and they testify, you understand the law says they're supposed to start at the same place. Now, would you have any difficulty following that law? You would not give less weight to the convicted felon automatically?
No.
Ms. Garcia, what is your take on the convicted felon question? If a convicted felon testifies, would you give him or her in the beginning the same weight as any other witness?
Yes, I would treat them all.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
I want to pick up with my original question. I'm talking about the possibility that young black men may be treated differently by law enforcement. And now we broadened that into, it's not just young black men, it could be anybody, based on the way they look, the car they drive, the hair they have, the clothes they wear, you get it. What are your feelings on that topic?
You asked me to be brutally honest, and I usually am, and I try to be all the time. I definitely believe, and I'm going to use some of the words that were thrown around here. The example was the teachers become jaded. I agree with that. Everybody can become jaded. Now, do I believe they're bad people? They're living their lives based on what they're living and have experienced. Can police officers become jaded because of the areas that they're assigned and dealing with? Yes, I believe that to be true. Can people in an area that are interacting with police all the time become jaded towards the police? Absolutely. You know, and the young lady up here said it perfect. You give respect to get respect. And it goes both ways. I'm not talking about from the civilian side or the police side. It's both. You know.
Would you accept the possibility that if one of those parties, an individual and a law enforcement officer, did not give respect or overreacted,
Okay.
that it can cause an even greater overreaction by the other party?
Every action has a reaction. Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay. Mr. Minerva, what are your thoughts on this topic?
I agree, but I don't know whether jaded. I think jaded is the correct term. For me, it's cynical. And I'd like to address police officers stopping people. As I stated before, I have been a police officer.
Right.
An individual who is stopped does not know what is going on in that radio car. They don't know if somebody's sick, if they have been told to be on the lookout for a particular person or car, what the description is. They may see a red car with tinted windows, and that's what they're looking for. They don't know who's driving the car. They have to stop and find out and inquire. So it's not that an individual is being picked on, although it does happen, yes, I will admit. But the officer is doing their job, following whatever comes over the radio. So you have to keep that in mind. They're not picking on you. They're looking for a person or a vehicle that has just robbed somebody or done something. And their emotions are very high when this happens. And they are human.
Mr. Minerva, I accept everything you're telling me. I accept everything you're telling me. I understand. I want to ask you this. You have experience with this because you were a law enforcement officer for a long time, okay? Would you accept the possibility that someone in law enforcement may receive information and be acting on that information and be wrong?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Would you accept, right, we're all capable of being wrong.
Right.
Would you accept the possibility that being wrong as a law enforcement officer may provoke a reaction from someone else.
Of course, it would provoke a reaction from both parties involved. Yes, definitely.
And lastly, would you accept that as a law enforcement officer, your life is at risk every day, right?
Yes, sir.
And because of that, there's a certain amount of self-preservation that goes into the job. It's both necessary and natural as human beings.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson, how do you feel about this general conversation I've been having? And I'll specify what I mean. I started off talking about how young black men sometimes are treated differently by law enforcement, okay? Then we rightfully so expanded that into it can be anybody who may be stereotyped based on the way they look, the car they drive, the clothes they wear, whatever. Do you agree with that concept?
Somewhat. Being a black man myself, I've been through this experience.
Okay.
Dealt with it, didn't like it, but you know.
Mr. Wilson, speak up just a little bit. We can barely hear you.
I said, for me as a black man, I've been through, I know where you're coming from. I've been stereotyped or what we call it. Said things and treated because of my skin. I know how to feel.
And would you agree with me, Mr. Wilson, that it's more likely to happen if you are younger?
In this day and time, yes.
Why?
It's the way the world perceives these young kids right now, that all of them are gangsters, rappers, uneducated. That's the way most of the world perceives the young kids.
No. And this is a tough conversation to have, but I think all of you are appreciating why we're having it. Mr. Wilson, do you think a person, would you have a gentleman next to you who is former law enforcement, though? We're getting both sides of the coin here, and I specifically am talking to Mr. Minerva because I want his side to come out. Mr. Wilson, do you think it's possible that two different sides can overreact to each other and cause an explosive situation?
Yes, sir.
Do you think it's likely in the context of young black men?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Glauber, what are your feelings on this topic?
I agree for the most part with what everybody's been saying. It's more of a profiling issue, but yes, there is racism involved every once in a while. But in today's day and age, I think it's more profiling than racism.
Now, let's talk about profiling for a minute. Let's say profiling leads to a face-to-face encounter, okay? And someone believes that they've been poked on. Thank you for your patience. Let me pick up Mr. Robert. I was asking if you believe heightened emotion or a situation could lead to an explosive situation. I think you did yes. Thank you. Mr. Tabita, how do you feel about the conversation we've been having?
I'm understanding of all the circumstances that have been discussed. I certainly don't believe that it's not possible for those things to take place or happen. It's a tough world, and I think, some people have, obviously everybody has their own beliefs of how things should be handled, but I don't think everybody is on the same mindset. So I certainly agree that, when I think I knew everything, you always find out, wow, I thought I've seen it all. So I certainly understand that those things are certainly possible.
Now, you're saying possible, and I accept that. Do you think that the reality is likely that this happens in the real world?
I should rephrase that. I think it is a reality. I think it absolutely does happen.
Okay.
I can't speak of specific items. I had, growing up, I had long hair at one point when I was a teenager, rock and roll, Of course, I don't have that hair now, but, it was one of those things where, hey, look at this kid, what's the deal? And I felt it in class when I was going to school. Not all kids have long hair, So, all of it is a reality.
Thank you. Mr. Stanley, you've been following our conversation.
Trying to.
What are your feelings on this topic?
A lot of different opinions, Everybody's got a different opinion here and there, but I think the consensus is that, things happen. If you got a question there, I don't...
Let me ask it this way. Do you accept that if likely or it's possible that young black men and other people as well are treated differently by law enforcement based on the way they may look, the clothes, the hair, the music, whatever?
I'm probably in the camp of, profiling more than black, white, or red or green. Just profiling. I think the cops have a tough job to do, and they do the best they can with it. Some of them are bad, most are good, and things happen.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Belinda, what are your feelings on this topic?
I like when you had stated about stereotypes and the, profiling and stuff like that. I think it's more of a stigma among our society in general than, the blame of the police or the media or whatever. I think that because certain stigmas are, I guess, inflated and exaggerated to a point, that it may seem like every situation in which something happens is, related to that. Like, I think a majority of people here have heard the joke, oh, you're pulling me over just because I'm black. I think that kind of thought process for things has really made a negative impact on our society as a whole, because sometimes a traffic stop is just a traffic stop, and it doesn't have anything to do with what color you are or any other aspect of what you are at that point in time, regardless of like the car or clothes or anything. And I think that because we do have these kinds of stigmas, that a person with diabetes or whatever is, a lesser member of society. I think that
things like that and of that nature are very damaging to people because sometimes you just like that kind of style, and that does not define you as a person. Because, you know, at one point, I used to wear a dog collar, and it wasn't for any real reason beyond the fact that I just liked wearing it. And some people, I'm sure, may have thought that it could have been related to a sexual stance or perhaps a political stance on maybe something like feminism or something. But the fact was that I was wearing it just because I liked wearing it. And I didn't always get questioned about it, but sometimes I did. And most people were pretty accepting of it, but some people were on the lesser side, like you should not wear that and whatever. And I don't believe in this country that we should be told what to and what not to wear just because of the stigmas that go with it. But I think that we should all be aware that there are stigmas that go with certain things. I know that wearing a dog collar is not a normal thing to do. And I accepted that, and I was never like, oh, you're just talking to me because I wear a dog. Yeah, I know that, you know. And I don't think that anything along those lines should be a reason to be defensive or anything, or even, you know, get angry or emotional about what others' reactions to you are. So I don't believe that just because a person is young or they're African American means that a cop is pulling them over just because they're young and African American. But there are instances where that is the case. And it's not for anything besides that fact. Then the only reason why a young black male may be pulled over for, well, no laws are being broken. It's just because they're a young black male, and the police have been told that, the police and the rest of society have been told that people of that description could be more likely to be on the wrong side of the law or mischievous in some way. And that's not them as a person's fault. It's just what they've experienced in the world and have been told since the moment they were born. You know?
I appreciate what you're telling me. Let me follow up with just one question. Because at the society since that happened, do you think it can cause overreaction between two different parties?
Absolutely. Even in a conversation, I've said something and my tone did not come out the way that I had intended it for, and the other party has reacted in, you know, a similar manner to the tone that I took, and things have escalated from there. So I think that, yes, anything one party does and the other overreacts to any degree can create a situation where neither party is, you know, totally at fault for it. It's just more of a reaction kind of thing that builds up to a situation.
Thank you. Ms. Sinnott,
It is, yes.
where do you stand on our conversation?
I know discrimination, racism exists. I know in our society that police officers have, for want of a better word, profiles. I think it exists. I know that there are good, law-abiding police officers. The majority of them are. Unfortunately, there are some who are not. I do realize that it's always a tough situation whenever police officers interact with community, and it can escalate beyond anybody's. And I don't think people naturally go into situations thinking, oh, I'm going to escalate.
Wells, you agree with Ms. Sinat?
I agree with what you said. I think there's always good and bad. There's good police officers, there's a few bad. There's young black men, there's good ones, there's bad. Same thing with everybody in here. Doesn't matter what color you are, there's good and bad.
And I agree with
It
you.
is. And that's just the way the world is. And we have to make our decisions and our questions based on an individual person, not a race. That has nothing to do with it, actually, except that it does exist.
But you agree with me that sometimes race or looks come into play in the real world. My history teacher, Mr. Bush, I'm curious to know how you feel about this topic.
Well, it would be tough to be a young black man in today's society.
Why?
For the simple fact of what's been talked about, the profiling, stigmatisms, the aspect of see how they look, all the racial comments, the things like that. When I became a teacher, I didn't go to school. I was in segregated South until the 10th grade, and I never went to school with a black child until I was in 10th grade. And not being around black people, you didn't know black people. And I had to learn. I learned the guy that sat in front of me in geometry class, he was smarter than me. But yet I didn't know what the aspect of it was, and I said, wow, great. And he helped me. And then when I went to university and junior college, I was predominantly in white schools in St. Petersburg, Florida, and up in Kentucky. And consequently, not knowing about black folks. And then I became a teacher. And then you are situated with black children. And I made it a point to learn about black kids by asking black kids, why do you do that? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Grooming care. Church. I've been in black churches because the only way as a teacher to understand someone else and the culture that they live in is to try to get into that as much as you want to. So, but to me, it's tough. Profiling. Quick story. I went to Tuskegee, Alabama because a number of my black teacher friends graduated from Tuskegee. I wanted to see this university. And my father was interested in the Tuskegee Airmen. We're driving around Tuskegee, Alabama, my father and I, and there weren't any white folks living in Tuskegee, Alabama. The police officers that we saw were all black. The people were predominantly all black. And I told him, I said, I sure hope a couple white guys don't hold up the 7-Eleven.
No, no.
You may laugh, but that's the profiling because we were the only white folks in a predominantly black community, and that comes back to, in my aspect, in the realization of it's tough. It would be tough for a black person to live because basically most of the communities, but it's changed since those days because now we have Spanish and we have a more diverse culture. But what I'm saying is, it's tough, and I'm sure as a black attorney, when you attend conferences and stuff, and you look around, and you say to yourself, how many are like me, and such. And President Obama, when he had the aspect of a father having to have a talk with his son, the talk, that we've heard about, and such. That you have to be careful, and the aspect of respect and all of these things, and it all comes down to that. But circumstances are circumstances, and it's tough. But I made it a point to go above and beyond to try to learn about things, and because how could I not be a good teacher if I didn't understand more about the black community and the black people? So that's what I tried to do as a teacher. Because I don't want to get into that that aspect of it. And so as a black man, I can understand the aspect of stereotyping, profiling, and everything else, and it's tough. It's tough with black young men.
Let me ask you this, as a teacher,
Yes, sir.
have you ever had a student tell you that they were in a situation or witnessed a situation with one of your students because of the way they look and law enforcement? Have you ever seen that happen?
No, I've not seen it happen at the school situation, no. But, no, the school resource officers, I've not seen them stereotyping kids. Or if a situation was happening, or a situation happened at school, grabbing a certain group versus another group.